love me. We're a happy family with a great big hug. Oh, won't you say you love me too?
Merry Christmas.
All those presents.
Pretty soon we'll make a house out of it. Daddy will help you make a house.
Say go marry him.
The story behind the duck is it's just like one of these objects that's been in my house my entire life, and I never really knew where it came from. I always thought it belonged to my dad. I always thought it belonged to my mom. And it was only about a month ago that I found out it was actually a Christmas present from my dad to my grandpa as kind of like a gag gift. And it just never made it out of our house. My whole life, it was like one of those objects that sat on a mantelpiece, and like originally when it was gifted to my grandpa, it had shotgun shells in it. It had Kent brand cigarettes and hooks and lures and like all this hunting stuff, because my grandpa was an avid hunter and fisherman and stuff like that. But when I was growing up, it always had something different in it. I'm pretty sure most of my life, though, it's had like baby pictures and like just the most random crap in there. Like when it sat on mantelpieces, like when I got tall enough that I could like reach the mantelpiece, I would always like try to play with it and get yelled at. But its importance to me is that it kind of just is the staple object that I would notice if it was gone from my house. In every house that I've lived in, and I've moved around a ton, it's just always been there, and it's kind of like that is home for me. And home is something that's, I think, important to everybody, but I think when you move around a lot, having like one place to be is, or having one thing that symbolizes home to you is really important. And for me, what was home was wherever this duck was and whatever it contained inside of it.
Merry Christmas, Gregory.
Thank you. Ride the horse.
The hat was a staple, like, drawing I had in my head of whenever I drew members of my family. And for me, the two elements of drawing my grandpa were the cowboy hat and a wheelchair. And I think I believed for like the longest time that my grandpa was a cowboy that had been thrown off of his horse, and because of that he had to sit in a wheelchair and ride in a wheelchair instead. And he always had like this John Wayne like personality about him. For me, about the hat is that it is a personal reminder of my grandpa and the kind of spirit that he had and his influence on me in being like this sturdy, stable person, even in like the worst situation possible. Which for him was, he suffered from a massive stroke when I was just a little baby, and he was paralyzed. And I didn't come to know how that happened until I was much older, but he was still this extremely sturdy person, and that hat sort of symbolizes that sturdiness, because while it's felt, it can be messed with, it can be torn apart, it still keeps its shape.
Dad, smile.
Hi, Greg.
The reason why this means a lot to me is because, not only because it was my grandpa's, but because he dealt with a really tough marriage situation and still wore his ring long after he didn't, most people would expect him not to. And the only reason he ever had to take it off was because he physically couldn't wear it anymore. But as I got older, the ring became more of a symbol of something that I want from my life. And, you know, most 22-year-old guys aren't thinking about, you know, when they get married or when they have a family, unless they're super religious, which I'm not. But family is important to me, and being solid and working out a relationship is really important to me. And it always bothered me why people couldn't work out relationships or wouldn't put in the effort. And I was really inspired by, despite everything that my grandpa went through with his marriage, which was a lot, he was still able to make it work out until the very end. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned from him.